Hello.
Hi, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Well, doing well. Are you able to indicate to me where the next event is taking place? In which gallery?
Oh, that is taking place in the Ali J Fine Art Gallery. You have to go to the space bar and scroll over to see the gallery.
Thank you.
No problem. And that's Ali right there. Hello. Good. How are you? I'm pretty excited for
Thank you
the
for
talk.
coming.
No problem.
We've been working on the show all day today with Jack and fixing stuff. So it's all gonna work out fine.
I'm sure it'll be great.
Thanks for being here. I think I'm gonna jump in the gallery, and then if anybody else comes in.
Sure. I was just about to. I was just about to introduce the event today and join in.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll see you in a minute. I'm gonna jump in.
Okay, I'll hop in there. Cool.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna hop back in there.
Well, room 2 worked for me.
This is the Ali J talk. The healing power of art and the metaverse. And with that, I will turn off the camera and we'll go in.
We will be discussing
And lithium hands, again, refers to how your hands can really have horrible tremors. Luckily, as you take lithium, you adjust, and it doesn't happen over time. But there were certain times when it was really, really effective. And lithium hands. Let's see here. So this one is oil, and again, oil, charcoal, some acrylic, and some of that sidewalk chalk, some pastel, and this is on canvas. This one's called Memories from One, and this has been one that I really got to learn from, in terms of when I showed it in a couple places, and sometimes I would try and give my own explanation of what it meant to me, but oftentimes I would just kind of say, well, let me just ask what people's interpretations are of it, and I always love their interpretations way more. You'll see that it has that kind of slash in it. Again, that kind of came from, just learning to paint when you have these lithium tremors. Instead of, holding a paintbrush like a pencil, oftentimes I'll hold it like a drumstick, and really, I don't know, I like to really press hard on the canvases, so I end up tearing a lot of them. But I also just kind of, I don't know, I like that happens. In some ways, it's like somebody trying to break through. So I don't know, Candace, what do you think that one is? What would your interpretation or feeling be? And I always let people look at them first, and then I'll, after a while, I'll approach them and ask them if they wanted to talk about it. And a lot of times they've looked at something and said, that's how I feel, and that's just the ultimate. And I really, really love, when I get that opportunity to talk to them about the paintings. And I think the most valuable thing after a while when I get to hear them and ask them if they want to talk about it. A lot of times they've looked at something and said, that's how I feel. Let's see. So this one is called The Garden, and this is, again, mixed media. So there's a lot of charcoal, a lot of pastel, a lot of the sidewalk chalk, a lot of acrylic, and this one we actually sold right here through Artgate. So it's got a happy home up in another country. So now I'm really, really pleased that this one got to go to a happy home. And this one was interesting because I did it and I put it on my wall, and I didn't think that anyone was really going to enjoy this one. It's funny how oftentimes you're not the best judge. I absolutely loved it, and I didn't even submit it, for the Berlin shows. And so luckily, when Allie J saw it, she's like, "What are you crazy? This is
Loved it, and then it
great."
lived on my wall for a little while before it went
Yeah.
up, and I miss
Yeah.
it still.
Yeah, and then Brandon, the owner of this whole VR museum, he actually put it in one of his galleries for a little while. So it's just, yeah. But yeah, it's called the Garden, and this is another one where I have my own story of it, but I really like to hear what people think. A lot of times in my paintings, there'll be one eye that is either not there or is damaged or missing, and again, I'd love to hear people's interpretations about that, but in actuality, in my life, the first time I ended up in a psychiatric hospital, I had this bad evening. It was at CBGB's in New York City at the Circle Jerks show, and was drunk and stage diving. And one time I just missed everybody and landed right on my head, just above my eye. Yeah, and woke up in the hospital, and they did an evaluation over me, and I don't know what it was, but I just kind of opened up about a lot of things, and I guess that was enough for them to say, okay, we're putting you in Bellevue. So, and trust me, Bellevue is a very scary place. Even psychiatrists that I've talked to from other places said, oh, Bellevue, you're in there, jeez. So.
This piece is it's one of my favorite, I gotta say, and I feel like it's so involved, and we have so many conversations, and the collector who acquired this piece, and she absolutely fell in love with it right away, and I remember who was standing here next to this piece for probably 30 minutes, discussing what she sees there, and she was just fascinated, and it's another thing towards how art connects us, without borders. And it's like, everybody gets something from the piece of art for themselves. And I know Jai kind of likes to let people interpret his pieces a lot of times, but I agree with him that, when you connect to something, you have your own story, why you connected. And so she absolutely loved it, and it was so fun to, be in an art game, right? Like saying, okay, we're in Metaverse, and we discuss this piece of art, and we're in different countries, and that is why we do this, right? And yeah, and she saw a lot in this piece.
That's how you end up buying an artwork, by falling in love in a piece because it resonates, and you're able to make your own stories with it.
Yeah, and I mean, when I'm in this room looking at the art, it really kind of blows me away, because each time when I'm talking about being in psychiatric hospitals, they've always been connected to suicide, and sometimes they work because of medication imbalances, and I think that's something for people to know. Anybody who's on medication, that you can make a big mistake, if you stop taking your medicine and then, don't work with the doctor when you ramp back up. A lot of times, I run out of money, so I couldn't get my medicine, not knowing that, you could go to a pharmacy and they'll give you a supply to get you through. And, so I'd stop it, and then, when I would get it, I'd say, okay, well, I guess I better take everything that I missed, and that can really, put you in a lot of trouble, and give you, oftentimes it can give you those suicidal thoughts. So you have to really be careful. But it just, it makes me proud, because I mean, in some ways, none of these paintings should be here at all. So I'm glad that I've been able to get through things, and just so happy that art therapy has really been just such an important part. All right.
Can I
So,
ask?
yeah, of course. Please.
Oh, I was just gonna ask. This painting, it looks like you can see. I don't know if you meant to put it there, but it almost look like you can see a skeleton through the top layers. You can see an actual anatomically correct skeleton in here, and the neck
Absolutely.
and all that.
Absolutely.
Did you do it intentionally, or is that just something
Absolutely.
I'm seeing?
Yeah. Almost not all of them, but most of my paintings, I'll start off with doing just that. I'm almost like building a person. So I'll start off with the skeleton, and draw the whole, skeleton, and then start adding onto things. And this is another one where, I had no idea it was going to look like this, and I was just building this person. And a lot of times I'll have maybe photos of myself that I'm going off of, and just trying to put on these layers and build and build and build. And so this is another case where this person, this whatever the spirit was, it's undone. So it didn't get to the point where I'd added on all these layers, but oftentimes I'll get to a point where it feels like, okay, this is where you stop. And I've had a lot of paintings that I didn't stop, and I don't want to say I ruined something, but I'll lose something. So I get really cautious, and oftentimes I will stop and hang it somewhere on the wall, and then just kind of walk past it, and ignore it, and talk to it, and see what's coming of it, and seeing if it needs more. But I get scared, because of the type of strokes that I do. I don't know if I could ever recreate. So it's kind of just luck and accident. When you're painting that quick, it's almost like being a skateboarder or an ice skater doing a trick. You just kind of go for it. So, but I have other paintings where I paint slowly and do very intricate stuff. But yeah, no, that's a great observation, and absolutely spot on.
I guess that's the only painting I actually. I guess maybe because you told that that's how you build your paintings, maybe that's why I saw it. But I don't think you can actually see the skeleton in any other one. Just this one. I mean, it's incredible. It's gorgeous. I can't believe you didn't like it.
Oh no, I did. I just didn't believe in it. I didn't think it was gonna be anything that great. So, which is funny because when I paint, it's one of the only times where I do really feel safe, and I always paint alone. And when I'm doing it, I kind of just have to feel myself. I get in this state where, I was joking with somebody that I met in Berlin, and I said, well, when I sit down and paint, my goal is to beat the Mona Lisa. So I just every single one is going to end up in the Louvre. And when I finish it, and if it's not exactly what I thought, or if it's not that great or anything, then I just throw it in a pile and move on to the next one. So I've got piles and tons of painting, but in a sense, I've been trying to make up for lost time, because I didn't paint for, again, I used to just kind of draw little cartoons when I was young, and then just stopped. So, in my process, I paint and draw a lot, and I just love it. So, it means I don't have much space anywhere. But cool. Maybe we'll pop over here. So this one is, it's called Rona Ballerina. Rana was my sister, and she passed away last year. And she did ballet when she was young. And this one is on canvas, and this was oil and acrylic and some charcoal. And I'm really proud of this one because Ali J and I decided to donate it to an organization called Scan Greater Richmond, and they sold it at an auction, and all the money went to children who had been abused for their therapy. So, you know, in many ways, it was something that my sister needed and what I needed when we were kids. You know, it gave back.
This piece is turned out really beautiful.
That one's you know, one of the more literal ones. That's actually a person that was based on a photograph that one of her friends had taken of her in, I think, in high school.
And there are a few of those that you did, Jared, right?
I'm sorry?
A few paintings that you did based on photographs, kind of in your abstract style, but like the over there too. And,
Yeah.
And the next one.
Cool. This one here is kind of, again, just going back to that style that got me started and really just kind of being free with these strokes. This one, again, is mixed media. It's on canvas. It's oil pastels, soft pastels, charcoal, and again, in some ways, you know, beginning to build a person, starting to put on these layers, and just exploring, learning. You know, I like to study anatomy a lot, and like to study the relationship, you know, between different parts of the body. And there's something called the Fibonacci sequence that, you know, occurs naturally in nature, oftentimes in different flowers and different shells, but it's been used and applied to art and math. So I kind of was playing a bit with that. Fibonacci looked like these kind of different types of circular type things. So, and again, this one is I have no idea who that is, or what it is. You know, it might be some sort of, you know, type of spirit that you know, is there to protect. A lot of times, you know, again, this probably goes back to that therapist, you know, that I was working with, and all her stories of angels and stuff. And I know in the Bible there's all sorts of different types of angels that, you know, have been sent to either protect or not. So.
Is that one chalk as well?
This one here?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some chalk in it. Yeah.
Can you tell a little bit? I don't think you. I'm not sure you mentioned that. Is that this is a newer one, right? Was it kind of in between the kind of two eras of your art?
Yeah. Yeah. This one is one of the newer ones, and yeah, this is, you know, a lot of people when they looked at my earlier stuff, you know, they would always say it was dark, you know, and theme, and I never thought of any of my art as being dark. I kind of thought the opposite. I kind of thought that there was a lot of hope in it, you know. So if a person in the painting or being in the painting looks sad or distressed, it's just because they're, you know, kind of going to that spot of hope and they're just not quite there. So it's like I've collected them and captured them as, you know, in this process of, you know, trying to get to that hope. You know, and sometimes people get there and sometimes people don't. So this painting was a bit of a transformation for me, and really starting to, you know, experiment more with different colors. All right. I'll just keep us moving, you know, since we are a bit on a time schedule. This one's called Girl with a Clover. This one's on paper, mostly pastel, some acrylic. And this one was actually a portrait that I did of my friend Anupama. And what's interesting about it, though, is that, you know, it was inspired by her, and I actually let her name it. She she was really good at finding 4-leaf clovers. She had this special gift. She could walk around and just they would magically appear to her. And so you can kind of see she's holding a little bit of a clover there. But this one, even though it's a portrait of her, it doesn't even really look like her. But it's more just kind of inspired by her. So, and again, maybe, it's kind of like that Fibonacci sequence idea that, within things, there are these kind of, appearances that can kind of pop out. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Something about, like, as I would look at the grass and I couldn't find any of these 4-leaf clovers, but somehow she knew something about those clovers that connected to her, and that she would just be like, oh, there's one, there's one, there's one. So, all right, I'll just keep it moving so we can stay on track. So this one is called Sometime Before Sunday, and that references. There's a movie called La Jetée by Chris Marker. He's a French filmmaker. I actually, have a film background. One of my degrees is in film, and in that movie, it discusses time travel, and there's this great scene that references Vertigo by Hitchcock, and there's a man and a woman, and they're looking at a sequoia stump, and it has all these markers on it that represent different times in history, different events in history that were marked by those rings. And for me, this one just represents different memories. The rowing team, the para rowing team that I coached, when my sister passed away, they bought me a tree that I planted, and I was thinking about that. There's a painting in the other room called the Rana Tree, which was kind of my first, painting of a tree for her. But this one, really just kind of started to, again, just kind of an experiment with color and different memories. And this is the one that has lots and lots of different layers on it. But I really, really had fun with this one. And this one's also on paper, and this one is mostly pastels, oil pastels, and soft pastels.
I have a question for Ali, actually.
Yeah.
I was wondering why you take the decision to enlarge the artwork.
Here?
Yes, in Outgate, and
Sure.
I'm sure, it's also your decision as an artist. Why do you think that having a larger artworks makes it better for the space instead of having the real size?
Sure. So originally, the first times that we did shows here, we had everything original size, and as I've been to lots of different galleries, like Irina Cumberland is here. She's an unbelievable artist who has a gallery here.
Thank you.
And one night after some of the panels that we were on, she and another artist, we just kind of walked into each other's galleries, and I got to see different ways that artists were using the gallery space, and and it just kind of struck me that sometimes, especially in the Virtual Reality Museum, that these larger pieces, just the larger appearance, is really striking. Some people, in the gallery have put paintings to cover an entire wall. Some of them actually kind of, seep onto the floor, and something that I'm excited about doing is starting to experiment with things like that. But I mean, this one isn't too far off. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, Ali, you want to talk to that about decisions to make things bigger?
Oh, well, well, I just sneaked them all and made them bigger. Well, honestly, it's kind of did come from that idea that it kind of, we talked about just before, that when you see pieces in real life, it's just much different, right? So I feel like it's hard sometimes because we have so much space and such large walls here that I didn't want a piece that is, let's say, 16 by 20, for instance, get lost, and if you don't have it, in front of you as a physical object, like to kind of, step away and get the feel of it, it's really hard, and not everybody knows that you can get really close, right? So especially when we've been here to guide people, I just double the size of this one, I believe, and I feel like this is a little bit better to kind of take it in. Slightly larger, so it's not, it's proportional, so I did not distort anything there besides just kind of, give it a little more volume.
Yeah, and it's almost a little bit like performance. Again, just going into these rooms and seeing what people have been doing with things. I mean, I really love seeing how people have stretched them all over the walls and everything. So,
well, a lot of those are digital pieces. And the information, if you guys anybody looks at the details, it's I make notes of like what the actual size is, so that you can kind of have an idea of the scale. They're not very large pieces. Most of them are smaller, so they're very easy to accommodate, which is quite good. Sometimes you see that you hear it from collectors. Oh, I don't have any more room space on my walls, but it's okay for these ones.
And it's something that I've been really trying to get into more is doing things on larger canvas. So currently I'm working on a painting that's on a stretch canvas, and it's not huge, but for what I've been doing, I guess it's about 6 foot by 6 foot. And it's really been fun working on that. I'm excited for that one to be finished and come out. It's got a neat story behind it and depicts again just another memory. It was from a time when I was in crisis and had taken an overdose and laid down in a park up in by where I was living and lay down, and then all of a sudden it started raining, and I was like, oh, come on, I can't go out like this. This is crap. And so luckily, that was enough to get me to get up and start walking, and was able to find a hospital. But that's when that painting is going to be depicting something like that. So just kind of that idea of the rain coming in to save. So.
But I just want to say that I really appreciate that you sharing all these backstories, and I found you very courageous to share all that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I mean that's what it's about. People don't talk enough about these things, so the more you talk, it's hopefully someone will get that courage to share. And I've had that happen a lot at galleries. People walk up and they'll say, "Yeah, something similar has happened." And that's one of the problems with children who are abused. People don't listen to them.
Yeah.
They'll
And that's kind of the goal of the panel that we had in the conversation. So we're trying to just bring out and make it a little bit more acceptable and bring it to life. Discuss with people a little bit more comfortable about it.
Yeah, and that's
So thank you for coming.
it's important. And that my second Berlin show, that one was called Unspoken Unheard, and from that there was actually a discussion about the artwork and specifically about child abuse. So hopefully it's making a difference there. Thank you, Candice.
Good night. This piece over here, Jack, could you share about it real quick? Like also, because I honestly don't know if I even asked you about the Purge piece right there.
Oh yeah,
And,
the Purge.
The videos that was.
Yep.
If anybody needs to pull
Yeah.
it up.
Yeah. So this one's called The Purge, and this would be, again, a fun one to to talk to people and see what their interpretations are. This is again a mixed media. It's mostly acrylic. This one is on art paper, and I don't know. I mean, this just kind of depicts to me, the purge. It's just kind of that idea of taking that old self or something, that's part of you, a memory perhaps, and just taking power over it and throwing it away. The poppies, they have lots of different meanings. Sometimes poppies are considered to represent hope. Sometimes they're considered to represent death. I know that after World War I, there was some poem about poppies that was based on somebody who saw these poppies on a battlefield, growing out from all the destruction and from where all the dead bodies were. So
Flanders Fields.
Thank you. Who said Flanders Fields?
I did. Here.
How do you know?
I heard a lot of it in. I'm Canadian, and it's a Canadian poem. I heard a lot of it from school.
Well, yeah, that's right. He's Canadian.
What's that?
Yeah, I forgot he was Canadian.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Go Canada. Oh. What do you think of that one, Zach? What's your reading on that?
Well, at first I picked up that it was poppies, but I didn't get the name of it. I figured it had something to do with death, or it had something to do with getting rid of something. But the name Purge, I really like that it's getting rid of like inner demons or memories. But the bright colors doesn't play into that subject matter, which is really nice and something I'm finding very common in your artwork so far. Is the juxtaposition between what you're trying to emote in your paintings versus the color palettes that you're using. There's always a big difference between the two, and I'm noticing that one especially in this one.
I love that. That was awesome.
I wanted to mention interesting because like poppies, right? Like and what they represent, right? When you talk about addiction, for example, and I remember I've seen it in some artists' works in the past that poppies is like associated with that often, with addiction and suicide and overdose and things like that. And, so this is an interesting kind of like this metaphor and that translate in like the beauty and the sadness of one.
Yeah. Luckily, I've never been addicted to poppies.
Right.
Did you make this one later on than some of the other ones?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one was quite recent. I think it was probably maybe 6 months ago, and yeah, I mean, it did come at a time when I was making some changes in my life and just, trying to live healthier.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I'm seeing communicated through your work is as the time goes on, you've started using brighter and brighter colors, and the subject matter has gotten darker in color. And maybe that has something to do with your outlook on life, your surroundings, the way you're seeing the world is getting better and brighter, healthier, even though the things that you're displaying in your artwork are still part of your inner monologue, your demons that you're expressing through your art.
Absolutely. So, I guess the therapy is working. So, I don't know how we're doing on time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit late 9:05 right now, but and then basically the last piece. This is very cool for everybody to see once you get a little bit close to the videos that's playing and that it's just and Jack can say a couple words, but this is basically his drawing process. Very interesting to see. It is something
The video isn't working for me.
try to back out and kind of get close a little bit, maybe back out a bunch. It's kind of, I think it's just kind of low. For me, it started several times. But you know, if you can try.
Yeah.
It's
Anyway, it's just a video kind of. So I've been doing art for a book series. It's called The Reckoning, and it's by author Jeffrey Pierce, and it's a World War I book. And so for the chapter 1 of the first book, he had asked me to draw this Webley revolver, and I wasn't so hot on the idea of drawing a gun, but then as we talked about it and I understood more, that this this gun was, you either live by it or die by it in the war. And he also, in that particular chapter, he wanted a picture of a flask, because it was the same thing with rum. You live by it or you die by it. They have rum rations and drink, rum before they would go into battle. And a lot of especially officers, became, horrible alcoholics from it. So once I understood that, the gun, was a character in the book and represents, that idea of, to live or die, then I really kind of had fun with it. And this actual painting here, this one, didn't end up being in the book. It was a different version of it. Sometimes I would do 50 different versions, before the author would say, okay, this is what I was looking for. But in this process, this was kind of using that style of just continuous painting. And again, it's something, that I kind of found helped me in the beginning, when I had those tremors. But it's also something that tons of artists do. So it's not like I invented anything. It's just something that ended up working for me. So, and obviously, I don't know if the video will play for you if you like walk up right to it. Sometimes that'll activate it.
No, actually, I haven't seen video yet.
Okay.
We are still on the first room.
Yeah.
Today when I went to the second room, there was some other paintings, but
I can. I'll put a link to the video on my Instagram. Actually, it's on my Facebook, but I'll put a link to it on my Instagram and on my website. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here and for spending an hour with us and taking out of your Friday night. Always love to connect and talk about
Yes, thank you so much for being here, and thank you everyone that is live streaming. Thanks again.
For live streaming and sharing this exhibition tour.
Yeah. If anybody wants to ever come in here and get a private tour, just up here. Contact me or contact Alex.
Oh my god. What? What is going on? Dude, I think it crashed.
Nobody peed in there once.
There's no pee.
Nobody peed.